See, with a little bit of moisture and a little bit of warmth, they start to reappear. So you need to be careful of this. So what can we do? Now, as with any pest, it's always good to know what you're dealing with. Now, you might recognize this. This is the bed of where I had the rocket, and I'm just clearing it out. Now, I put together a video that's going to tell you about the life cycle of a snail and a slug, obviously because they're the same family. And this rocket does have a very strong fragrance to it, but you see how it's growing back. But I want to give it a tidy up, because this video you're about to see will give you the reasons why I need to do this. Apart from the fact that I want it to grow a bit more, it's important to do this. So you watch the video while I tidy this up.
Garden gastropods, the silent invaders. These creatures, often overlooked because of their slow pace and small size, can cause significant damage to your garden if left unchecked. They arrive under the cover of darkness, a silent, slimy army on a mission of mass munching. Under the veil of night, they move in stealth mode, leaving behind a trail of destruction that can be devastating to your plants. Their target: your prized petunias, your luscious lettuce, and any other tender greens they can find. These voracious feeders can decimate your garden in no time. Your pride and joy, the garden you've spent countless hours nurturing and cultivating, is at risk. The beauty and bounty of your hard work can be undone overnight. Yes, I'm talking about slugs and snails, those seemingly innocuous creatures that can wreak havoc on a carefully cultivated plot. They may appear harmless, but their impact is anything but. They're the bane of gardeners everywhere, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. From chewed leaves to destroyed seedlings, their presence is a gardener's nightmare. But there are ways to combat these pests and protect your garden. Understanding your enemy is the first step to winning the war. By learning about their habits and weaknesses, you can develop effective strategies to keep them at bay. And believe me, with a little know-how, you can outsmart these garden gluttons and reclaim your rightful place as king of your backyard domain. Armed with the right tools and knowledge, you can ensure your garden remains a thriving, beautiful sanctuary. Slimy speciation, a life less ordinary. Let's be honest, slugs and snails aren't the prettiest creatures in the garden. With their slimy bodies and slow, deliberate movements, they often go unnoticed or are seen as pests. In fact, with their slimy bodies and meandering movements, they might be more at home in a horror movie, but there's more to these creatures than meets the eye. Beneath that unassuming exterior lies a fascinating life cycle. From the moment they hatch, these creatures embark on a journey that's nothing short of extraordinary. Did you know a single snail can lay up to 100 eggs at a time? That's right, these tiny creatures are prolific breeders. Talk about a population explosion waiting to happen. The eggs are often laid in clusters, hidden away in the soil or beneath leaves. These tiny translucent eggs are a marvel of nature. They are delicate and almost invisible to the naked eye. When they hatch, they emerge as miniature versions of their parents, ready to start munching their way through your garden. These baby snails are voracious eaters, and those silvery trails they leave behind, they're not just random patterns. That's their version of a superhighway, allowing them to navigate back to their favorite feeding spots. These trails are essential for their survival. It's like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, except, well, slimier. These trails help them find their way and avoid danger, making their seemingly simple lives quite complex. Barriers and baits deterring the gastronomic gastropods. These slimy invaders can wreak havoc on your garden, munching through your precious plants and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. But there are effective ways to keep them at bay. Now that you know what you're dealing with, let's talk strategy. It's all about creating an environment that's less inviting for these pests. By understanding their habits and preferences, you can outsmart them. The first line of defense: barriers. These physical obstacles can prevent slugs and snails from reaching your plants. Think of it like building a moat around your castle of cauliflower. By surrounding your plants with barriers, you create a fortress that these pests can't easily penetrate. Crushed eggshells, diatomaceous earth, even copper tape. These create a prickly, unpleasant surface that slugs and snails would rather avoid. The sharp edges of eggshells can deter them, while DE dehydrates their slimy bodies. Then there are the traps. These can be highly effective in reducing the slug and snail population in your garden. A shallow dish of beer sunk into the soil acts like an irresistible pub for slugs and snails. They are drawn to the yeast in the beer, which mimics the smell of decomposing plant material. They crawl in for a sip, fall in, and, well, let's just say it's the last call for these garden pests. By combining barriers and traps, you can protect your garden and enjoy a bountiful harvest. Predator power, calling in the cavalry, but why fight this battle alone? Enlist the help of nature's own pest control predators, birds, frogs, toads, even hedgehogs. These garden allies consider slugs and snails a tasty treat. Encourage feathered friends to visit by providing bird feeders and baths. Create inviting habitats for frogs and toads with small ponds or damp, shady areas. Remember, a thriving ecosystem is a balanced ecosystem, and that includes welcoming the creatures that help keep pesky gastropods in check. Strategic planting, cultivating a slug-resistant garden. Believe it or not, you can actually deter slugs and snails simply by what you choose to plant. Strong-smelling herbs like rosemary, thyme, and sage act as natural repellents. Think of them as the equivalent of a keep out sign for slimy intruders. And when planning your vegetable patch, opt for slug-resistant varieties. Leafy greens like kale and chard, with their tougher leaves, are less appealing to these soft-bodied pests. Remember, a little strategic planting can go a long way in keeping your garden slug-free. Maintaining the upper hand. Tips for a slug-free haven. Maintaining a slug-free garden requires vigilance. Regularly inspect your plants for any signs of damage or, heaven forbid, the culprits themselves. Handpicking slugs and snails might not be glamorous, but it's an effective way to keep their numbers down. Keep your garden tidy. Remove debris, fallen leaves, and overgrown vegetation where slugs and snails like to hide and lay their eggs. Remember, a clean garden is a happy garden for both you and your plants. Victory Garden. Triumph over the molluscan menace. So there you have it. Arm yourselves with knowledge, a few tricks of the trade, and a healthy dose of determination. And you too can triumph over the molluscan menace. Remember, a slug-free garden is not a dream. It's a distinct possibility. Let's get back outside and I will tell you a bit more about the other alternatives I use here.
So, the reason we're clearing out this bed here is that I don't want any additional habitat for any slugs or snails that I might have in the garden here. So keeping the bed tidy, not only is going to let that rocket start growing again, which it already has, I can put all these bits and pieces on the compost, and it's one less space for slug or snail to get to. But these boxes here can prove to be a little spot for them, so I will trim these to keep the grass low and reduce their habitats. Now here we're at the back of the house on the side, and I leave this to just do its thing. And if you look around, you can't really see from the camera, but I can see a number of slugs in here, or snails rather. We don't have slugs. Moving about, having a bit of a feed, doing their thing, and that's quite all right for me. I don't mind them being in there, because while they're there, they're not going to come out into my veggie patch. And I've also got a population of toads here who feed on these snails, so good food for them, and a few birds coming in as well. And I'm not sure if I've still got Spike the hedgehog, but because I've not seen him yet. Maybe he'll be back, we'll see. So by being there, like I say, it stops them from going up towards the veggies. The thing about slugs and snails is that there's so many theories out there as to what works best for their control. And to be honest with you, I don't think there is any one thing that works. I think what we've got to try and do really is look at it as being a bit of a deterrent. So if you go out at night with your head torch on and you're in your veggie patch picking them off by hand, fine. And you've got a few beer traps, again, fine. I actually did an experiment last year where I used oats and bran, and I'll put that up at the end of this video for you to take a look at. It was very interesting with the results. They do like the oats, and it doesn't do them any favors. Basically, they become so bloated that they start to fall asleep, and they're easy pickings for their predators. So that kind of helps. There are cases where if it's on the bran side of things, it's a bit of a gory end for them. So if you want to see how that works out, you won't physically see the results, but certainly the video at the end of this one will give you a bit more info on it. A bit gory, so be warned. But as a general rule of thumb for me, I don't use copper tape here. When I do use the oats, I'll sprinkle them around the plants I want to protect. And the great thing about that is that unlike DE or diatomaceous earth, it's not affected by moisture. And by using just enough, they don't attract mice and they don't attract the birds either. So it's another good way of doing it. Other people use sheep's wool. Some people want to use the coffee grinds, and they think it's to do with the fact that it's hard for them to cross, but in actual fact it's because it's poisonous. That's the simple truth of it. So, you know, like I say, so many theories out there. You really need to do what's best for yourself, really. Try and, you know, experiment with all of them. I hope you found all of that of interest, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. But for now, take care and I'll catch you next time.